Morning, everybody. We're just waiting for the last few stragglers to come in, and then we're going to get started. You might want to just grab a notepad because you'll probably want to take some notes. You're going to get some good tips and tricks today. Learn some nice new things that you might not have known before. So you might want to take some notes. I certainly did when I met these three panelists my first time around. I had lots of notes. Good tips and tricks.
Mike, it looks like, oh, something was in the chat.
Yep, it was just Bob Dietzel saying hi.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Bob.
John. All right.
How about
How are we
them?
looking on time? Hey, Mike, we can't hear you.
Yep, sorry, Danielle's behind the scenes. I'm talking to her.
Okay. Are we good to get started?
Yeah, I would say, why don't you get started?
Excellent. All right. Well, here we go. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know that everyone is busy today, but we also know that there is a topic near and dear to most of our hearts, and that would be that of talent acquisition and retention of employees. And I'm sure you're all wondering why KMRD decided to do a webinar about this. And it was because we ourselves are experiencing difficulty in finding great new talent and also retaining employees. And we keep hearing this from our clients, as well as the carrier partners we work with. And we felt this is something within the realm of risk management, right? Managing your people. So we wanted to bring this topic out to you and see if we could help our clients by reaching out to some esteemed experts in the human resources industry. So that's what we did. And we were lucky enough to be able to get the three panelists that we have here today. So before I give introductions, I'd just like to let you know some of the things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to introduce everyone in a short while, and then we're going to walk through some of the challenges that they are experiencing in the workplace today that is affecting their jobs, how they approach retaining great employees, how they look for new exceptional employees. And then we're going to go through some innovative ideas that they have to make themselves different, differentiate themselves from the rest of the flock. And then we'll go through a question and answer session. So any questions that you have, feel free to throw them into the chat box. But as well, at the end, we're going to have it open to you as well so that you can speak to the panelists directly through your chats. And Mike is the facilitator here behind the scenes. So he's going to be doing that. One more thing, a housekeeping item I wanted to bring to your attention is we're going to do polling questions. There will be 3. And we'll start off with those polling questions after the introduction, because this is going to help us gear our discussion with the panelists as to what direction and what we need to target. So just be on the lookout for those. And if you could participate, we'd very much appreciate it. All right, well, let's get to our introductions. First, I'd love to introduce John Baldino. John is a certified human resources professional with over 30 years of experience in strategic planning, organizational development, coaching, leadership development, employee relations, and more. He is the president of Humareso, an outsourced human resources firm supporting organizations of all sizes. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Ingrid.
You got it. Next, we've got Deb Kliman. She is the vice president of human resources at Sabre Systems Incorporated, a privately owned company headquartered in Warminster, Pennsylvania, that provides specialized technology solution services and mission expertise in the critical domains of advanced communication technologies, cyber, systems and software engineering, digital transformation, and enterprise data management for defense, federal and commercial customers. Deb is an advocate for military veterans and spoke on several panels to promote the transition of military personnel to corporate careers. She's also provided strategic and tactical support to help cultivate her organization's culture, improve the work environment, and increase employee satisfaction. She's held various Greater Valley Forge Human Resource Association board member and or chair positions over 6 years, and is the previous president of that association. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you.
And last but not least, very happy to introduce Denise Hauser. Denise has more than 25 years of experience as a global human resources and talent acquisition officer. Currently, she serves as the head of talent acquisition at Asplundh Tree Expert, a global utility clearance company headquartered in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania, with over 36,000 employees. She has a unique set of experiences from leading division HR business partner teams to consulting multinational clients and building global talent centers of excellence. She believes talent and culture are key enablers of business success. Welcome, Denise.
Good morning.
I'm very happy to have introduced you all. I wanted to start off with just a quick question. Let's ask the audience and let's ask you. I would like everybody to answer this next question here. And the question is, a new survey of business leaders by PricewaterhouseCoopers reveals that acquisition and retention rank second, 38%, among cited risks to their business. See, there's that risk management piece that we were talking about. That is only second, by the way, to cyber as a security risk, and that's 40%. So our question to you for all the audience, and my question to the panelists are, do you agree with that?
Give you another 10 seconds to answer.
Okay.
All right, they're coming in. It's looking at about 85% yes.
Wow, 85% are agreeing that that would be their number one. Okay, so let's ask our panelists, who on our panelist board agrees with that? Who doesn't? Let's start with those that do agree first.
I definitely agree, Ingrid. No doubt about it. All the studies that you see today state that the war for talent is on. No doubt about it. All the business leaders that I speak with, my peers here at Asplundh, we speak about the attraction and the retention piece probably every day. So I agree.
All right, great. Deb, what do you
And
think?
I absolutely agree with Denise and with the poll as well, because again, it is just the largest area of concern. So it is for business owners. It's just, retaining our employees and attracting is just, the number one.
Okay. And John, what do you think?
I mean, here's Baldino, the contrarian, right? So I would say I'm surprised that it's second, right? Honestly, I think it's first. And not that I'm poo-pooing cybersecurity, so please don't at me. I get that cybersecurity is important, but I'm surprised that this isn't first, because we're dealing with on the conservative metric, about 84% of companies in the US are 50 or less employees. And so those particular organizations are incredibly worried about their talent and retaining them in particular, because they're trying to compete with the larger organizations that are seeking some of the same positions, right, to fill. And so sometimes the larger organizations can offer better benefits, better career mapping, better learning. And so that's a big deal to a larger number of companies, obviously right now, who struggle to compete at that level for talent retention and acquisition.
Okay. So that brings us to our next question and our next topic of conversation. We're going to get to our next slide here, trends. So first, we're going to ask the audience, because when we talk about trends, we want to gear our conversation toward the size of your organization. So the question coming up on your screen is, how many employees are there in your organization? Is it 1 to 50? Is it 50 to 200? Or is it more than 200? This answer will just kind of help us gear the breadth of what we're talking about and just kind of targeting the conversation. So we'll give Mike a few minutes, couple seconds, I mean.
Yep. So answers are coming in. It's looking at about a 50% between 1 and 50, about a 15% between 50 and 200, and about a 35% 200 plus.
Excellent. Okay, great. So it looks like we're going to have quite a mixed bag here today. So you all can speak to your expertise and really the size of what you're used to working with, I think, because we've got a varied group here on the call. So let's start with some of the trends that you're seeing today, the challenges that you encounter in your job every day going to the office. Deb, from number one you see on the screen, it's workplace flexibility. It feels like workers, or at least in my feeling, it feels like workers today have more of an upper hand than they ever have had before. How do you work with that, and what are you doing every day to make amends with the people that you're working with that upper hand?
What I feel like we're doing really well is actually listening to them and seeing what they're looking for. We just finished an employee survey. We really ranked really high in reference to work and life balance. It was something like 99% of our employees either somewhat or strongly agreed in reference to that area. So I feel like we're doing really well with that. We're doing really well with communication that ranked really high, and also recognition. And recognition, again, is so important. But again, it's that workplace, in this case, that workplace, having the idea of being able that balance, it's important to employees, and I feel like we've got it. It was something from the very beginning. I've been with Sabre for 13 years, and it has remained that way. So it really is listening to them, understanding what's important to them, and there might not be the absolute flexibility because of our industry. I mean, my employees are on Navy base, they're on Army posts, they work for civilian agencies. I mean, the people that are in labs and things like that, there might not be that flexibility of being able to work at home. In our functional areas, there is, the other areas, there just might not be. So again, as long as we have that connection with them, which is so important, again, I think that's probably the most important for us.
You mentioned a word, recognition, and I think that oftentimes gets overlooked by a lot of employers. They sometimes don't tell their employees when they're doing a good job, but they do always bring up the things that are problems or go wrong, right? So what do you do to recognize your employees, to make them feel good about the job that they are doing and have done?
So we have, they're called Above and Beyonds, but they are virtual, and we will, any employee can nominate each other. It can be a supervisor or it could be a customer. So if a government customer ends up praising one of our employees, that program manager needs to be able to get that out and explain to the rest of, in this case, what they did well. And so what we do is we recognize them, but they're kind of corny, but we are on virtually. It is during lunch, and we are cheering our employees on. They're cheering, like we go off mute and we literally cheer, and people are writing to each other. They all tune in because, again, they're eating their lunch and they're able to see, what others have done. And it's just really worked well. So that is, and we have a company that it's a third party that we've used, which is Acceleration. And that's worked really well too. And it's called Sabre Pro Perks. So our employees are able to pick out of a catalog on something that they like. So there's gift cards in there, there's fun things. So again, I think that's really well. And then the other thing is we still do anniversaries. So it's at the 5, 10, 15
Okay.
25 year mark. And we recognize that, and we do that once a year. And it really is, like during the holiday time that's recognized. Same thing, we're using that same catalog.
That's great. Denise, is there something similar that how Asplundh approaches that
So
topic?
glad you asked that question, because I know one of my peers, who is our director of HR business partnership for the field, is on. He sits right next to me, as a matter of fact. And one of the things, and Deb, I've got to piggyback on what you just said. When he goes out and does what we call round tables with our field operations, guess what the number one thing is that they bring up that we could do a better job on? It's exactly what Deb said. It's recognition. It comes up time and time again. And Deb, you can count on us to call you to share some of those best practices that you just talked about. But everything from recognizing employees who have those milestones, those years of service. We did a lot of good things prior to COVID, but guess what? COVID put a wrinkle in what we're doing today. We've forgotten about some of those basic things that keep employees engaged and happy. So to hear some of the things that you said, no doubt about it, I agree 110% that recognition and some of the cool stuff that you mentioned is job number one. And I know, Ingrid, you'll probably ask us about some of the other trends. That one is very, very important, that workplace flexibility that Deb spoke about a little bit as well, because the employees are in the driver's seat today. No doubt about it. We've heard of a seller's market. Well, guess what? It's an employee-driven market. And it's making us all sit back and think, in order to attract talent, what do we need to do differently to sort of make the employees whole, to be concerned about their well-being, their mental health, and just making them happy, having time to go to a baseball game with your children, to leave early, to go out to celebrate Halloween with them, and to do those things. I've seen all those instances happening here at Asplundh. We're definitely moving in the right direction. So Deb, kudos to you and your team and what you're doing over at your operation. Recognition, job number one.
Thanks, Denise.
Excellent. I know that the trends are also out there. It's so hard to find employees today. And sometimes you might hire someone that doesn't have all the check boxes checked because it fills a position and it might take longer to train them, or maybe the educational background of that person doesn't match or isn't a fit, but you might drop the requirement for a college degree, something like that. Do you see that prevalent today, John, in where you're working with your clients?
Yeah, for sure. I think that if you step number one for, I think, any organization, and really this has to do with, and Mike, I appreciate the metrics on the size of the organizations that are represented with us today. If you're in that 65% or so category of up to 200 employees that are with us today, you may struggle, right? Feel like you're struggling with making exceptions to things for hiring. But what I would say is really up and down. If you're an organization of 200,000 employees, look at the job description and look at your job marketing. Do you really care whether someone required to have a bachelor's degree? Here's what I mean. One, look at the people that are doing really well in that role and within your organization. Do they all have a bachelor's degree? If so, what was their bachelor's degree in? My undergraduate's in English. I do human resources. Do I communicate well? I think so, because the writing part of communication was really my strong suit, but I don't know that I would have met I didn't have a business degree with a concentration in human resources. I might not be qualified today for some of the posting that happens for particular HR roles. And somebody's been allowing me to do HR for over 30 years. Well, something's wrong then, right? The other thing is we have to be wise about the fact that college enrollment is down. And so if enrollment's down and you continue to ask for particular degrees, and I'm just picking on degree for a second, you may have less of a candidate pool now to choose from. I mean, how much worse do you want to make the candidate pool for selection for you with
Right.
all of these hurdles, right? To sort of jump over and through and around. I think when you're looking at educational diversity, I think what you want to be wise about is, how do I measure what I intend to measure? Can I do anything at the onset from an assessment standpoint to give me a sense of where this person's coming from? There are some wonderful assessment tools out there that really help to give you a sense of both some tactical understanding of particular things, but also components of what the person is going to bring in terms of collaboration and empathy and trustworthiness. And some of those things are harder to teach, right? And so I'd rather get somebody in who's going to sort of align from a value proposition standpoint and help them learn some of the tactical components, perhaps, right? That maybe I can and have the capacity to with the team, because now the team has an opportunity to exercise another level of analysis or synthesis of information and giving it away to someone else. It's very encouraging and exciting for an employee to have those opportunities and be, coming back to what Denise and Deb were saying, give them, those employees, a chance to be recognized for their expertise, right? To be able
Absolutely.
to, right? So I think we can be wiser about how we're looking at diversity. Real quick, you know, when I deal with organizations, when they're looking for talent acquisition and they tell me they want 15 years of such and such an experience before they'll hire somebody, I always say, what were you doing 15 years ago? Were you hiring someone like this 15 years ago? Well, if you weren't, why do you think somebody else should have that responsibility? What is the magic between 15 years and 12 years, between 12 years and 10 years? Tell me what the magic is specifically. Most companies struggle to be specific.
So we
John,
really,
you say that, you know what I say? Good luck with that.
Listen, this is the PG version because it's early morning, right? So, but you're right. Sometimes we have to have these real honest conversations with business leaders to say, I looked at your resume, CEO. I'd have never hired you for this job based on how you're putting things together. So that can't be what really matters ultimately, because you're in this role, you are doing well in this role, but you won't look like on paper that you'd qualify for this role. So let's talk through this. What do we really want to get to?
And John, I agree with you, but then there's certain industries, like in my industry, we have labor categories. We have those minimum requirements. The government is saying that we need it to be that the person has this particular degree or this type of technical degree and this number of minimum requirements of number of years of experience. So it really is different in my industry. I agree with everything that you're saying, but that flexibility is just not possible.
And I love that you're bringing that up, Deb, because that's such a great point. And you know, this is, for those of you who are watching, this is the time in your program to light up your cigarette, because this is often where we fall short from a governmental standpoint, right? So the government tends to be a step or two behind, quite honestly, with what they see in the other portion of the labor market. And here's a great, for example, Deb, not specific to your industry, but governmental in perspective. All of the IRS agents that are being sought after right now, right? So the increase in budget to hire the IRS agents that are needed, the qualifications for the IRS agent, where it started at the beginning of the budget cycle and where it is right now, have changed, because they cannot find the people that meet the 58 bullet points that they want them to meet. And so they're having to adjust. And the other thing that I'll say is, we do a disservice to our military personnel, because the statistics tell us that when military personnel coming out of service and coming into the workplace, when they're reading job descriptions and job ads, if there's 10 bullet points, if they don't feel they match all 10 bullet points, they do not apply. And guys that are, by the way, let me give you the other end, guys that never go into the service, and I'm specifically speaking about those who identify as male, if they think that they can match 2 of the 10 bullet points, they're going to send that application. If they just match 2 of the 10, they hit it, Indeed, submit, and send it. But if they come from a military background, the research tells us on average, right? 9.7. They have to match 9.7 of the 10 bullets before they're going to apply. We have to be really thoughtful, I think, on both ends of the spectrum as to how we treat, for instance, they are military personnel to get them into the workforce.
Here, here, John, here, here. I just read in a study done by Korn Ferry. I promised Ingrid I would come with some stunning statistics today. I love numbers. I really like the numbers in my paycheck to be a lot of zeros. But anyway, but here's the backdrop to all of that I find interesting. Deb, you talked about all the things that the military want to see. John, you spoke about some of the areas that we've got to sort of rejig and look at differently. Here's the backdrop of trying to find that talent today. On average, according to Korn Ferry, 4 million workers are quitting their job every month this year. That's unbelievable, right? We won't even talk about the number of women that are leaving, that are making a decision. Guess what? I've broken into the glass ceiling. Doesn't really matter. My kids are important. Other things are priority. Do I need as much money as I think I need? And they're making a decision not to return or to ask for more workplace flexibility so that they can be home to get their kids off the bus. Here's another interesting statistic. 47 million people left their jobs by the end of 2021. You think of those statistics, and that's the backdrop, that if we're not doing some things different in light of everything that the other panelists have said today, to be more flexible, to really take a look at our requirements, not worry about ticking off all the boxes, treating our military a little differently, then guess what? We're going to be out of business pretty soon. We really are. So I wholeheartedly agree with what both the other panelists said. And these trends are spot on.
So Denise, when you're saying that the people that have left, I mean, I think you probably look at it in your own organizations too. How about the number of employees that are coming back, the boomerangs, right? The idea that the employees, you know, again, they almost felt like it was, I feel like it was peer pressure among themselves with their friends and things like that to look at different opportunities. But we're also seeing that the people are coming back.
Yep.
And so that's important too.
Yep.
Yeah,
Boomerang employees, we call them. That's exactly right. But what's interesting too, Deb, on the other side of the equation, in our industry, a lot of people who are leaving for various reasons. The work's too hard. Pay is not where I want it to be. I can go work for Amazon, you know, for $30 an hour and be inside in air conditioning. We're finding that people are leaving the industry as a whole and making a decision. You know what? I'm, you know, X age or point in my career. And you know what? I've always thought about doing X. And you know what? If I don't do it now, when am I going to do it? And making a decision to even change industries, another trend on the opposite side. John, you were going to say something.
Oh, no, 100% agree with you, because Josh Burson, for those of you that may follow some of the research that he does, through the height of the pandemic, 40 to 50% of people who resigned their role, not only resigned their role, resigned their industry. 40 to 50% of people have changed industries from the height of the pandemic. And so now coming back to, again, even on these trends, educational diversity, you have those that have valid work experience who may not, though, be able to translate over to an industry they're now interested in, right? So we have to be thoughtful about how do we line that up. The other piece to this puzzle too is the number of individuals who have transitioned to entrepreneurial efforts.
Exactly.
Because they were burned during the pandemic. And that that's not a slight necessarily on any particular company when I say that, but they receive it to be, you know, I went to work one day, the next day my place was shut down because of mandates. I had no income coming in. Yes, there was some unemployment, but that only went so far. I don't ever want to be at someone else's whim. My life needs to get back into my control. And so I'm starting my own business, whatever that might be, right? And so now those people are out of the traditional talent pool as well.
Exactly. Nobody's spoken about number 3, which is near and dear to my heart. I have written some articles in a diversity magazine prior to joining Asplundh, where we talk about the generations that are now in the workplace. I love this topic. I think I shared with a couple of you previously that we now have 5 generations in the workforce. Boy, is that something different for many of us as well. How do we train people effectively so that we cater to different learning styles and different motivations? I'm a baby boomer, and I got news for you. I learn very differently. I'm a college graduate, I have my master's, but guess what? I'm a person that learns. You can say something to me, but I also need to see it and probably repeat it back. It's like meeting somebody. I got to say your name. I got to look at you. And that's the way I learn. But a lot of the newer generations will say, look, here's what I need. I need fast, quick, in a hurry. I'm on the move. Whereas I'm moving at a little bit of a slower pace. I can move quick, but those generational differences really play into our landscape today as well. And attracting people one way, using a title that may not be a vanity title and attract some of these other generations, basic things like that, we leaders in organizations have to think about. What do you guys think about the generational piece? Deb?
I guess I look at it too, though, as an employee, what are they still interested? It doesn't matter what generation, they're still interested in the idea of, professional development. And so, and again, it could be because, again, my majority of my employees are techies. So the whole thing is that that's super important to them. So if we are focusing on that, then we are meeting that. I mean, we are making sure that our lunch and learns are different areas. So, we will have the Medicare lunch, and we'll also have, again, a different one on, we had, it was called Fit Linda and different things, and yoga and stuff like that. Again, all these different things for wellness. So we go from one extreme to another, but I think that there's still areas that are really important. So one of the things, and it's actually called, communities of practice. And it really is like this group of people that are specific to a particular area. So it's the software developers are one, and the cyber is another. And what that group is doing is that they're sharing. And so that's what I mean. I still really do believe that the professional development, it doesn't matter what position you're in and what age, it's still something of interest to everyone.
Gotcha.
I think community is really, in my opinion, what ought to be the focus. How are we building community? Because an inclusive work environment is I know we hear this as a trend as well, but the practicality of an inclusive work environment comes from knowing how to build community. I can hire for diversity, so to speak, all day long, but the numbers tell us that if we haven't prepared an inclusive and equitable environment, the diverse hiring falls apart within 6 months. So why waste all of this effort and time if you aren't really tilling the ground, so to speak, of where these individuals are going to come? And I think that comes from community. There's great value in me being in community with people who are in their 70s, just like there is for me to be in community with people who are in their 20s. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I understand life perspective from both ends of the spectrum, though I am closer to the 70s people. All of their life perspective, but I learn from that, and I understand how to speak to individuals because of what matters to them. And and some of you've heard me say this. I have 3 adult children, 19, 21, and 23. The 21-year-old, she has deleted all of her social media, everything. She's not interested. It's not a viable part of her life. She's not a weirdo. She's very engaged in her community. But social media doesn't do it for her. But what we still hear within the workplace is, so-and-so's the 20-some-year-old, let them handle the tech and our social media we can't be that way and categorize people, because that's where bias and potential discrimination, right, can come into place. And I love Denise's passion around generations. We can be thoughtful around generations without pegging people and categorizing them in a particular way.
You're spot on again, John. I so agree with that. Absolutely.
As do I. I'm going to move to the next topic, which is employee retention. And I'm going to ask Deb for a few, just a few questions that I wanted to bring up with you on this one, and everybody else can chime in as well. But the challenges that you're encountering today, to what lengths will you go to keep an exceptional employee? Well, what do you do to ensure that you keep them instead of them decide that they want to leave?
So what we've noticed is that our employees are being, I'm going to say, lured for, enticing salaries. So, I mean, the software developers, we understand that. But at the same time, look what, again, what those employees had said in reference to the areas that we did so well in. So I think it's still that we have to continue with that. I mean, the idea that 99% of those employees, that life balance, like I really believe that that is important. And so we just have to continue with that. We have to make sure that we have the connection, and we have the connection with the different employee events where it's family oriented. We hear again, that's super important to them. They had a potluck in our Maryland office, and there was over 35 employees that were part of that. Like, that's great. They're able to have that connection. And, so anyway, I just think that, again, employees are going to be lured with a bunch of different things. I think that one of the things with us too is that because of the type of work that being mission critical and it being almost a 25% employee base that are previous military, that are veterans, it's important to them on what the mission is. And so if we continue with that importance and so that they recognize, how important they are with the type of work that they're doing. So we have to basically continue and make sure that they understand that part of it.
Okay.
Yep, Deb, you said something earlier about listening to employees. Isn't that the key?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the key to retaining? We do stay interviews where possible, and some basic things come up. My peer, who I mentioned earlier, has mentioned to me in doing these roundtables that one employee didn't learn the way that other people did. And he's like, I'm out of here. And we learned that we have a particular way that we train new employees here. And that just wasn't working for him by just talking and listening. I got to go back to that. It's as simple as that. And you're going to lose a certain segment of people. It's not the right fit. It's not the right job. They don't like working in cold or hot weather. Maybe they want to move to another part of the country. There's going to be that, but there are people, if we just listen and take care of the whole being of that person, I think we'll be better off. John spoke about that community. It all ties in and fits together, in my opinion.
Denise, I love your passion. I really do. I can just imagine how you are with your employees. And
I'm the most boring person you ever did see.
Come on now, come on.
No, it's neat. It really is.
Not at all. I would not say you're boring at all.
No.
So I would say today that we're all feeling that pinch, and desperate times call for creative strategies. So I would like to hear some innovative ideas that you may have with respect to the workforce. So we're gonna click on to that slide right now. And we've talked a lot about things that you do already. Deb, you've mentioned awards and recognition. One of the things I was wondering about is, today remote work is a huge piece of the puzzle, and so many employees are demanding that they are allowed to work from home. So how do you how do you allow someone to work from home and give them that independence that they're looking for, but still help them build that pathway, a guided pathway to success? Because if they're not in the office or around the rest of the corporate culture, how do you acclimate them to be successful if they're not around other people, but still give them that independence that they have? Anyone?
I mean, I just had the opportunity to talk about part of that last week. And so this idea of proximity bias is real, right? And so the numbers are starting to come in on it. And so those employees within an organization that are physically present within a facility, and I'm not just saying office, whatever the facility is, versus those that are working 100% either from home or remotely, wherever that may be, we're seeing that there is a disproportionate amount of those within that are getting promotions and moving along rather than those that are working, say, from a distance. Even if the performance is great for both, even if metrics are, in parity for both, we're seeing that that it's leaning towards people that are there. So what do you do, right? How do you approach that? Because I don't know that it's going away. Honestly, the first strategy that I came to mind when we were talking about this is going to be a really groundbreaking strategy. It's called honesty. So this one is one that I think, especially on the HR and talent acquisition side of things, be okay with being honest. If a role cannot be done remotely, even hybrid, then don't promise, don't hope, don't wish, just say it. Some of the people that I get to talk to who are like, I think every role should be done remotely. Nobody should have to come to an office anymore. Let's cut back on this. They're the same people that are, ordering Instacart and DoorDash. And I'm like, well, who do you think's bringing your food, right? Every role cannot be done remotely. You're okay with those people coming to bring you your food while you're home working. You have to be thoughtful around what's happening within industry as a whole. And so HR, I think at moments over especially the last 14 to 16 months, almost has wedged themselves into a corner where there's a caste system that's developed within some organizations that the remote jobs are better than the work on site jobs. That's bad. That strategy has to be amended quickly, because that's not true. I am so grateful for the people in the warehouse. I am so grateful for the people making the real pizza. I don't like Zoom pizza. I like real pizza. Right? So I appreciate those individuals, and we ought to make sure that in addition to being honest, we come back to recognizing and being grateful. That has to be a regular piece of our daily interaction, not cheesy, but honest. And
I love it. I love that, John. Boy, you must be a terrific leader to work with.
well,
I'll be honest with you.
We'll see.
You've got that people-centric approach, and I love that. I love customer centricity, but people centricity is so important. I'm thinking about now our benefits director who is here, and she speaks about when she's looking at what are we going to bring to the table year over year to make our employees whole, to make our environment more attractive to potential candidates and also those people that we want to retain. And I've talked a little bit about taking care of the whole person. Mental health, is a big thing today. Taking care of the well-being of the person, being concerned about people. And John, you were spot on with many of the things that you said, being honest. If the job can't be done at home, say that up front, not just to get the person in and then go, oh, by the way, if you can come in 3 days a week, that's what we really want. I mean, that's what we really would love to have. But I think you're spot on. But the incentive and the strategy piece, I think we have to challenge ourselves as leaders. And our leader here does, that heads up our HR, in that we look at things creatively and not just get used to saying things like, but we've always done it this way. Does that drive you crazy?
Yeah,
drives me nuts.
right.
We have to look at what we can do differently to address the whole being of the person. And I think we're on our way to being even better in that vein here at Asplundh.
The creative, I'll give you a couple quick creatives.
Yes, please.
One's old school. And so sometimes the old needs to become new again. They're called RJP.
Vintage.
Right. Thank you, Deb. I love that. Here are the vintage strategies. We're going to talk, right? Those of you that remember RJPs, realistic job previews.
Yes.
I don't know how, but we've sunset that for too long. Bring it back. Let people come in and
Like a lot of teams.
John, you're not going to believe it. It's on the board behind me. RJP. I'm telling you, in a prior life, we didn't allow anybody to even get through an application unless they looked at what that job was about. See, my peers are going to think I'm really a brilliant person now.
You are brilliant.
My board.
I mean, I will tell you the one industry that still does that pretty well is the restaurant industry. They will have a cook, chef, garde manger even come in. Let me see your knife skills. Let me see how you prepare this. Let me see how, and allow them the opportunity to sort of engage them with what their skill set is. And then the application, they watch others they trail, it's called, for an evening and watch what the other cooks do and how they use their skill set. We can get to that with a lot of the roles that we have right now. Give people an opportunity to really see what it's like, because sometimes we have recruiters who are involved and, bless their hearts. And I don't mean that in the full Southern way, but bless their hearts that they're doing their very best to bring people in, but they don't necessarily know fully what the application of that role is going to look like. So help people with RJPs. The other thing I would say is be authentic to your brand. And so whatever, content marketing that you can do to help with acquisition and retention, use it. If it makes sense for your company to be on TikTok, then do it. It's the fastest growing recruitment platform, believe it or not, out there. But if you aren't in an industry where it makes sense to have a TikTok, if it really will become making fun of people who are trying to dance in a 15-second video, don't make fun of people. Don't let that be the way in which it goes. Be smart about your brand.
So you're basically even saying know who will be listening for this, and trying to attract the right candidate for the right type of position based on almost the culture in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there
anything? You gotta go, John, where people are. I think both of you are saying that too. So if you've got, in our environment, it's people that like the outdoors, that want, maybe not the constraints of being in an office for the most part. For our company, you've got to go where those people are.
Yes.
You really do.
And be wise about it. I run a wonderful HR consulting firm. Awesome folks. We do, awesome work. Can I put everything on video? I should not. No, I don't want everything to be on video. Could I do a TikTok video on how we help to terminate someone? Yes. Would that be really wise to do? No. Right? Think through these things.
Well, John, if you create a TikTok video, I want to see you with an Afro wig.
No, that's actually out there somewhere already, by the way. So we'll have to.
You got to do a version of James Brown with a cape. I could see it now.
Love it. I love it. Is there anything unconventional any of you have done to attract or retain someone for your company?
This is crazy talk.
I love crazy talk.
Created a new job.
Created what? A job?
Just because you like that candidate so much, just create a new job and maybe they'll fit in.
I love the person, and the person is saying, I don't know if the work that I'm doing is really what I want to be doing. And so you just have an honest dialogue to say, well, what do you want to be doing? Let's see if what you want to do is something that we can support. And sometimes that conversation is, I can meet you with 75% of what you've just shared. Are you willing to give me 25% in some of these other pieces? Can you meet me in that? And all of a sudden it's a brand new role with a new title, all kinds. That now again, I know for some organizations that's stressful because perhaps there's, a whole procurement piece that you have to go through. I know, but the system is supposed to work for you, not against you. So figure out ways to help move that along so that you can be creative, because when you have great talent, work with them. Work with them.
Good point. And you bring up a interesting point. One of our leaders from New Zealand, who is over here instituting some new procedures that we're going to learn in the US, gave me a tagline to myself and one of my talent acquisition managers. And it says something like this, John. It begs to the point that what you just said. And it's, hey, even if you don't meet the requirements of this job in its entirety, hey, submit an application anyway. Because guess what? We may not be looking for that skill set today, but there may be something for you anyway. And maybe it's a job we're thinking about in the future and we haven't framed it up, but you get this great application and go, that's what I want. That's exactly what I want. I love what you just said.
So
I gotta think differently.
Deb is in a great spot in that. Yeah, Deb is, because there are some roles, again, when you're dealing with pay grades, if you have, this is what the role is worth, and we think about government, right, that this is the level, this is what you make for this, or teachers that are on step salary, what it is. So I think there's been a lot of pressure over the last year to say, just pay more, just pay more, just pay more. Listen, money isn't the answer to everything. I know that sounds very trite, but it isn't. I know plenty of people making a whole lot of money and were super unhappy and left their jobs anyway. So it isn't just about the money. It is about the mission. It is about what you're doing. Nonprofit hiring is up over the last year. Up. They don't pay well.
You should say that.
Right?
Many of these generations will take less pay. It is a fact. If you are a company that does well for the environment and you're concerned more about the ESG type stuff that everybody's talking about today. And you're exactly right, John. Excellent. People want to feel good.
This one leader, and again, he's a dynamic leader, and his idea, and we haven't done it yet because again, it came up, and we have it as a 2023 initiative. But he wants to do, you know how it's just like speed dating, but it would be speed mentoring. So he has in mind, like, it's like, okay, a couple of hours, during if everything always has to be around lunchtime. So it'd be around lunchtime, and they can come into the different, almost like booths. So we would do it, just like how we do teams here, and you would go in and out, or how you do a virtual career fair. And they can speak to this person, they can speak to this person, because we feel like the idea of saying, hey, would you like to be a mentor, and trying to match people up and having it so formalized is not working for us. And so we know we have to do something different. And again, this energy of this guy and everything else, like, it probably will work because he has this in mind, and we'll make it work. But that's, so what you're asking about, is there anything, a little different and stuff like that? I feel like that's something that we will be doing, and that I think it'll be fun.
I love that
Speed
idea.
dating at work.
Yeah, but he's calling it speed mentoring.
Call it speed mentoring. Call it. Yes. I've done the speed dating at work. Not a good idea. Yes.
I remember something that we had we also internally were talking about speed, something like a speed dating, but it was a speed get to know you for new employees when they come on board, that they go from person to person, and each person already in the organization could ask the new employee any question. And it was like a speed dating thing, just to get to know the new person who started, so that they would get to know us and we would get to know them in a fun atmosphere.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, where we might be able to introduce maybe a libation, something like that, and some good food. So I love ideas that sit outside the box, that help break a stagnant culture, because we need to do that. I heard your word honesty. I heard the word flexibility a lot. And I wanted to get to the end. Obviously, all good things take time. So initiatives will not go into place and make results overnight. It takes time to implement them. But I think that if you stay the course, you should be able to get the results that you're looking for. Just keep the course. I wanted to break it out to the questions and answers part in a minute, but I wanted to leave with our panelists, what would be your number one takeaway or word of advice that you would like to share with our audience? What's the one thing in your job every day that you think matters the most?
Listen.
Listen.
For me, it would be connection.
Connection. I like connection. I like connection because I like listen because we don't do it often enough. Sometimes we talk over people. Sometimes we act like we're listening and we really aren't. I love connection because everything is connected. There's connectivity everywhere, especially today with social media and the webinar and connected to our audience. John, what is your word?
I mean, you know, I'm again the contrarian. It's 2 words. I'm sorry. It's be reasonable. And what I mean is you can't boil the ocean. Be wise. Start with 1 or 2 things, right? There's so many ideas, I'm sure, that are in your head. Write them down, but just be reasonable with starting with 1 or 2.
That's great advice. That is great advice. I think we've all learned a lot. I heard a couple of statistics that were thrown out there from different websites. Maybe people will want to know what those websites are later. I think it was Cornflower. I heard
Corn
right?
Fairy.
Corn Fairy. Corn Fairy. And I know John has the touch and pulse on other websites and statistics. So between the 3 of you, maybe someone wanted to ask more questions outside of this. We will allow you all to do that. Believe it or not, they've actually let us post their email addresses so that you can get connected with them directly if your question doesn't get asked and answered today. So Mike, you're still on. I don't see him, but Mike,
Yep,
do you have
I am
any
here.
questions up?
Yep. We have time for just a few questions. A few came in. One of them being, what are some of the resources that you guys are using to actually get in front of talent? Because that's half the battle.
It's a great question.
Yep. Every job board that we can, social media sites, participating and initiating career events. I mean, I think every channel that we can possibly turn on to reach folks. But we're doing some non-traditional things, working with Job Corps, working with some of the industry related resource, the forestry groups, the arborists, different associations. Again, I don't think there's any channel we haven't touched. Even speaking about growing our own and developing curriculum with some of the community schools, et cetera. I'll leave it to the others to speak on that.
Love to grow your own. Love that.
Yes.
One thing that I'll mention is that, and to answer this, average across all roles right now, I cannot say it's specific for any particular role, but over all roles, we're averaging close to 65% of roles being filled currently are being done through what's called passive sourcing. That means these people are not applying for your job. They're not on Indeed or wherever else and applying for your job. This requires sourcing, meaning someone within your organization going out to find the people who would fill the requirements for the role. And so I would say, you know, what kinds of platforms would help with that? Look up those that are providing passive sourcing of candidates, ones that are helping you to sort of index the kind of skill sets, overall competencies needed for the role, and then what people, usually through LinkedIn and some other places, that you can then go after. Honestly, good old fashioned running after people.
So John, you're basically even saying professional societies. If someone in this case is looking for an HR person, again, it's where do the HR people, where are they together?
Correct.
And it would be the professional societies with, you know, again, all of these types of things. We still are heavily active with our employee referral because it just works.
Exactly.
And just relook at those. Make sure, encourage the employees, do different campaigns or blitzes, and, you know, work on that too.
It's every channel, everything you just said, every channel.
Great.
Great.
Mike, you have another question?
Yeah, we'll just do one more since we're pushing an hour. Let's see here. What are some of the other non-financial incentives that you guys are using to keep employees retained? I know we mentioned recognition, flexibility. Is there anything else?
I think it's wellness. So our
Yes.
wellness, I've done is we've used our wellness dollars to do these different initiatives, and it's a way of connecting the employees. And what we're doing is we're competing against each other, but encouraging. So our developers have developed a system, and we're putting in, if an employee, when we do these campaigns, it's for a particular time, they work out, that's a point. If they cheer on their coworker, it's another point. If they do something else, it's another point. And all of those points get tallied. And then we're able to pick out, the top and be able to offer it. We also just did Weight Watchers. We realized not just the Weight Watchers side, but what the employees wanted is they wanted to be able to connect with each other and be able to cheer on each other. So our developers did the same thing, which is they put something together. And so they're able to share recipes. They're able to be able to connect through something that was important to them, which again was Weight Watchers.
Great.
That's great.
That is great. Anybody else? No?
Let people share what they know. One of the things we do even within, and believe it or not, that is a recognition tactic, right? It doesn't have to cost you anything. One of the things we do in our organization is every Friday at 4 o'clock, the entire organization comes online and one or a couple of people teach us something. Sometimes
Love
it has to do with HR or talent acquisition. Sometimes it's about tornadoes or how to build a website, or just something that they know, and there's appreciation in, I have an opportunity to express.
Exactly.
And I have an audience that will cheer me on and are excited to learn from me.
I like that. Is it?
I
like a
love
12
that idea,
15
John.
minutes kind of thing? Time slotted?
Usually up to a half an hour, depends on what they're doing. And then
Great
there's
idea.
and we have a good time.
That's
definitely
I
like that
love that.
a lot. Mike, you said that was it? We're
Yep,
out of
that
time
is
for
it.
questions? All right, so everyone, our esteemed panelists, their information is right there on the screen. You can see their email addresses, and we're happy to have you reach out to them direct. Please don't hesitate. They've opened themselves up for questions and answers if you want to. So please feel free to do so. And we want to thank you all, the audience, for taking the time out of your day today. We hope you learned something new that you can take with you today and move forward in your organization with new ideas, new routines, and confidence that you can retain your exceptional employees and that you can find new employees. And I want to thank all of you, John, Denise, and Deb, for coming on board for us today. We really appreciate it. Hey, you never know, maybe we'll have to have you come back again another time.
Ingrid, thank you for facilitating it. I think you
Thank you.
really
Thanks,
wonderful
everybody.
session.
Have a great
Fun.
rest of your day.
If anybody needs a copy of the webinar, we were recording it, so you could reach out to Ingrid or myself, and we'll be happy to send you a copy.
Sure thing, the link, right?
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a
Thanks,
wonderful
everybody.
day
Have a
today.
great day. Bye-bye.
Go Phillies.
Yes. Go Phillies.